Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Scouting for Growth podcast. Today, I am excited to introduce you to a super special guest who is shaping the future of video content creation through cutting edge AI. Joining us is Michael Lingelbach, the CEO and co-founder of Hedra, a company that specializes in long-form generative video and agentic AI solutions. I tried Hedra actually when it came out in 2024 and showed a few videos of the power of this platform on my LinkedIn profile. In just over a year, though, Michael and his team have seen explosive growth and raised backing from leading tech investors, including Index Ventures and Andreessen Horowitz. I think it's around $10 million they raised through their last round of funding. Michael's journey began as a PhD student, actually, at Stanford, where he focused on controllable long form video generation. He quickly recognized a gap in the market when it came to combine advanced visual models with dialogue driven avatars, all with the goal of making AI generated content more natural and impactful. From marketing and social media campaigns to corporate training videos, Hydra's technology is revolutionizing how we produce immersive, human-like content at scale. So tune in as Michael and I discuss the power of agentic AI, the big terms we've seen at the end of last year, the ethical dimensions of automated digital creation, and how he's charting new paths for startups, enterprises, and content creators alike. Indeed, let's dive right in and learn more about Michael's vision for redefining the future of video storytelling. So, Michael, welcome to the Scouting for Growth podcast. Hi, Michael. Lovely to see you today and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thanks so much for having me.
So let's go straight into our conversation. So, welcome to Scouting for Growth, and I look forward to diving into your path in shaping up Hedra. Hedra, how do we say Hedra? Hydra.
It's pronounced Hedra.
Hedra.
Um,
Okay.
it's Greek, so it comes from the foundation of a geometric solid. We're a foundation model company, so we thought it was a nice like play on words.
So, well, Hedra, it is. So let's talk about your path in shaping up Hedra, your company. It seems that you have not gone through a linear path. I just look at some of my investor data. I've seen that you actually have been building the company for quite a while and you have received investment from some of the top investors out there.
Yeah, so the company is a little over a year old at this point. So I dropped out of my PhD back in 2023 to start Hedra. I was a PhD student at Stanford with Jiajun Wu and Fei Li. And I've always had like a very long-standing interest in media. Like I grew up doing theater as a kid and, thespians in high school. So this has been like a long-standing dream of mine to build this company.
Oh, wonderful. And so reflecting on your journey so far, what has been your hurdle, I guess, the founders' hurdles and misstep? You said just 1 year, so it's, a recent company, but still doing super well. And what got you to
Yeah.
your vision as well?
Yeah, I mean, one of the big hurdles is transitioning from academia to industry. Like I came straight from my PhD. So there's a lot of stuff just, running payroll, like working with recruiters, like building an engineering team. Like they don't teach you these things in a PhD. You spend more time thinking about like, models and algorithms and writing papers. So I had to like learn on the fly when we started. And fortunately, like, I had some great mentors. I have a lot of friends who are also founders, which helped a lot. Um, and then, in terms of hurdles, like, building a business is always crazy, right? Every day there's like some new challenge or new opportunity for growth. So learning things like how do you like effectively manage a recruiting stream? How do you like manage an engineering team? How do you balance like research, engineering, product design? I think like a lot of it was just personal growth challenges. like me just like learning new things. But I think that's been the most exciting part.
Yeah, I'm sure. So, how many people are within the company today, Michael?
Yeah, so if you count like interns, we have like quite a few really talented PhD interns. We're about 20 or 12 full-time people.
Nice.
Um, yeah, the company's really grown. Like we when we started, it was really just four of us. And that's really what drove a lot of the core model contributions.
Yeah, I saw, yes, you have your co-founder as well. And from, I guess it's multi, and we are talking about AI, right?
Hmm.
The advantage of AI, probably you don't need a massive team anyway anymore, but you need to actually select the right talent. So
Hmm.
when you look at Hedra, tell us, what does it aim to do? What it is?
Yeah. So I think we're still very early in generative media. Like Stable Diffusion came out 2 years ago for images. Video models have been maturing rapidly. But right now, video models are very focused on like small fragments of content, not really cohesive brand storytelling. Um, so building models that are able to not only, generate compelling dialogue performances, incorporate consistent identities and assets is a really challenging research problem, and is something that we're really pushing on because we're very focused on like how do we take this technology and bring it from something that's like fun to play with to something that's like a strong part of like a enterprise marketing or brand marketing workflow. Um, and so we've spent a lot of our time focused on like improving the core capabilities and efficiency of these models and then coupling that with like good product design to make the actual model part of a real workflow, not a point solution for creating a video.
Yeah, I mean, I tried, right? I remember when iDrag came out, I played with it, right? I put my picture and all those things.
Yeah.
And it's longer form, right? It's longer form video
Hmm.
than what we've seen so far. So where do you see this going, right? From you talked about stable diffusion, the technology is improving, and even what we were able to do 2 years ago compared to what we're able to do today is massively different with generative AI and the modeling itself. So where do you see this going in the future?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think when people like first think about generative AI, they think about increasing the volume of content. But increasing volume of content typically is not really a problem. Like I remember back, if you look at some surveys from the early 2010s, when you talk to like marketers, the volume and the cost of production was the predominant concern. But now, if you look at like the data, the predominant concern of most marketers is engagement. Like we live in an attention economy where like fighting for the slice of people's attention is like quite hard. So I think the focus now, in my opinion, and what we're focused on is not how do you make a lot of content, is like how do you make really good content that's going to hook people, whether that's being even more creative, like incorporating animated characters, which is something we do particularly well, to like creating just like really emotional, compelling performances, to creating funny content. All of this is an area that's kind of a open space in AI, because up until this time, I think even for like, LLMs, generative and generative media, it's really been focused on like volume and ease of use rather than like, going superhuman level in terms of engagement. So that's where we really focus on is like how we build this next generation of systems that can actually reason about what is going to be content that hooks people and be able to end-to-end optimize that.
Yeah. So your views around short versus long form. So for example,
Hmm.
I'm playing with the social media platform X, LinkedIn, Twitter, Twitter X, as well as LinkedIn and Instagram. Instagram, I brought all those video-based content, short form 30 to 60 seconds. LinkedIn is trying to replicate that, I guess, and making our content, therefore, more video focused. What is your view on the balance between short form versus long form? I believe there is a language now, a word around dialogue, building a dialogue. You mentioned the difficulty
Hmm.
for marketers is engagement. How do we leverage what you guys are doing to actually drive that engagement, that scrolling, stopping people scrolling through content?
Yeah, I think, well, you're optimizing for two different targets. The people that For short form content, usually your objective is to quickly hook the viewer's attention in the first 5 to 10 seconds as they're scrolling through like a TikTok feed or on LinkedIn, which, it has like kind of like a TikTok feed now.
Now, yeah.
Um, you want something that like really catches their eye. So you want like bright colors, you want like a hook in the first line, like, oh my God, you will not believe what we're going to talk about today. Or like some crazy character. That's something people use us for. So you have like a claymation version of yourself. You've got like an anime version of yourself. Something that's like, wow, what is this? Like I have to like see what's going on in this video. So you're not optimizing for delivering information, you're optimizing for capturing attention. And I think that's like the key innovation with short form content. And that's a whole type of work and research. I think with long form content, you're optimizing for retention. So like you want the user to still be engaged, but usually I think the reason a person is watching a long form video, it's usually they want information or entertainment. Usually I'd say on social media information, people usually don't watch long form content for entertainment on social media.
Yeah.
Um, so in that case, it's a mixture of like, I think the quality of the underlying content, like, are you conveying information that one makes the user feel like you're conveying information? And two is actually like something that's going to be useful for them. And I think that's still the job of like the content creators. Like that's like why your content is unique, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Um,
absolutely.
and then I think too, it's like, can you make that content engaging, like and interesting visually, sonically, from an editing perspective? And that's where we can help, by like, creating exciting visuals, automatically editing, cutting. Um, that I think is where AI has the most opportunity rather than just writing your dialogue for you. Because if we write your dialogue for you, then we can write your dialogue for anyone, right?
Yeah.
So we want to still allow creators to have like their unique voice, brands to have their unique voice. We just want to help you make it as engaging and as easy as possible to create something that's engaging.
Yeah. But so what does that mean from a term in terms of technology? Is the
Mhm.
technology complexity different if you do short form versus long form?
Yeah, I think with long form content, the quality of the agentic experience is more important. With short form content, it can often be like just a couple of cuts. It doesn't require reasoning over a long period of time. Although you can just one shot generate like a really interesting video hook.
Mhm.
And that's enough, often. I think for long form content, it's much more about reasoning holistically over the experience. Like, is this interesting? Is the content good? What's the trend? How is this podcast structured? How is this like YouTube vlog structured? So I think even though the technology, it's all like LLMs, video diffusion models, audio diffusion models under the hood, integrating them together into a workflow and reasoning over that content to make it something people want to watch. That part's much more challenging with long form content.
Yeah, no, I get that. So before going a little bit more into diving into the company, I'd love to actually highlight your scaling strategy and the growth strategy, right? You've received
Mhm.
early backing from some very well-known investor, Index Ventures, Andreessen Horowitz, which we all love. Some of the startup I've worked with have received investment from A16Z. And in my industry, which is insurance, which is always very excited when you get a big investor like them to support an industry which need to change, like insurance, Michael. Where do you see the opportunity first in industry, right? We talked about media, we talked about social media, we talked about maybe short form movies. Where do you see
Mhm.
the opportunity is, and how are you going to use your funding to grow, scale your business in the future?
Yeah, so I think that there's video is a massive market and it's growing rapidly. It's like where most advertising, marketing, information, learning, spending is shifting towards. Because it's in a way, it's like we think of video as like this new form of communication, like because short form video platforms are newer than like text-based video platforms. But actually, video is the most natural form of communication. Like people have been talking to each other face to face for a long time. It's really just video finally gets us back to the closest thing to talking face to face that's either asynchronous or like not actually being in the same room. Um, so I think video has always been like the frontier and the most one of the most exciting things to be working in. But now finally the technology is almost at a point where we can automate it and do these really exciting things. So for me, I see like the most exciting opportunities in the fact that content production right now is very fragmented and very complicated because it's still mostly filmed and recorded. And that is great for things like Hollywood, where you really want to care artistically about shots and like, the compelling actor performances. But it's not so great for like, marketing and learning, where the people's day job is not being like, an actor or performer. And a lot of people are camera shy. A lot of places don't have actually the equipment, so what we think the big opportunity is how can you make it like accessible for like, product marketing managers, social marketing people at companies to be able to have all this like powerful technology to be able to generate video and have a workflow where they're working together with an AI to make compelling content that doesn't require them to like outsource to an external agency. So we can have really rapid feedback cycles rather than like these really drawn out things where you're working with an external partner.
Yeah, it's interesting how video has evolved. And we already talked about social. When you work for industry like me, video, whilst it might be easy, you need to allocate the time for it. And so, being able to have option to create still great content, which is compelling, which meets users' need is critical. And I have to highlight, 1 year you already have 1 million registered users. So
More
congratulations.
than that now. But
Okay.
yes, thank you. It's been really exciting to see the rapid adoption.
Yeah, like people like me, saw the announcement. I remember seeing it in one of the newspaper. I can't remember if it was Fortune or Forbes, and said, okay, let me try this thing. And I went to try it immediately. But so from a founder's perspective, how do you make sure that you fulfill the need of your investors, right? Index Venture, Andreessen Horowitz. I'm sure you have lots of meeting with them to actually see how you are going to scale the company. How do you do
Yeah.
it?
Well, I think what I will say and what I think our investors would also say is ultimately the most important thing is to focus on product and your users. Because I think, if you are spending your time thinking about how to please your investors, you're spending your time thinking about, in my opinion, not the thing that's most optimal for the growth of the business. The most optimal thing for the growth of the business, which ultimately is what the investors want, is to think about, the market size, the market opportunities, your users, their pain points, and how you can always be spending your time to maximize growth. So I spend a lot of my time interacting with our users. I'm very active on our Discord. I'm very active on our like support forums. I spend a lot of time in enterprise sales meetings with our customers, trying to figure out what's the next thing that we can build to unlock the next, revenue milestone. And I think our investors would say that's where I should be spending my time on. I think like, I love working with Indexed and Andreessen. I think they're some of the, most thoughtful people that I've worked with. And they really do think about these how media, how marketing is going to change over time. So yeah, I'd say, I have a great relationship with our investors. I'm super happy with, who we work with. And yeah, I think they would tell me to just keep focusing on our users and keep focusing on growth.
Mm. So, Michael, one of the key questions which is often coming to me is orchestration. And I think you highlighted that already a little bit earlier.
Mhm.
We have all those tools now, right? From text to video to pictures, right? We have all this stuff coming at us to create content. So,
Yeah.
would be your view as to how marketing teams and creators, use those tools effectively? How do we unpack the biggest opportunity when we start looking at AI generating content, including video?
Yeah. So I think like historically, it's been very manual, right? Like, people go for whatever the best tool in a given area is. They spend a lot of time like, reading through like, Reddit, looking at like Twitter or X, and trying to figure out what's the best thing I should be doing, like what's the cool new hottest thing. And, I talk to a lot of users and they're just like exhausted. It's just like there's always something new coming out. They're always having to relearn a workflow. And I think, there's been this rise in mind space of this thing of like agentic AI. And just like I think agentic AI is like a little bit of a confusing term. But in reality, it's basically like allowing models to reason and call other models to accomplish a task recursively with some sort of defined endpoint, is how I like to think of it. And I think the era of agentic AI is coming to media production. Um, and that's like, what I'm personally most excited about. Um, I think that in the future, it's going to be much more like co-creating with another person on your team rather than you having to get really good at like comfy UI and like really go with mid-journey. It's gonna be much more like you are like the strategist co-working with someone who's implementing your vision who you can provide feedback with.
Yeah, I've seen. So interesting enough, before jumping on to this conversation with you, I just had a conversation around agentic AI and how it's being used. And some of the conversation we're having was around the CFO agent or the
Yeah.
sales agent or the customer service agent and how it communicates with other agents to fulfill a specific outcome. I would love to see from a creator viewpoint that what that looks like, because I guess we need the creator helping us do the copy and then the video and then potential the visual pictures, but also pushing it into the social media platform and engaging as well with
Yeah.
people responding, right?
Yeah, I think that's what the future is going to be is much more about, holistic agents that kind of can reason over what makes content engaging, can monitor analytics, can kind of subsume a lot of the less engaging parts of the work that maybe they might excel at.
Yeah. So when you draw the line, where do we draw the line between artificial intelligence and efficient content engine, ensuring that we remain genuine? A big problem in my industry, Michael, is ethics, responsibility,
Yeah.
AI governance. We are scared to do the wrong thing. In the US, we've
Mhm.
seen algorithmic denial for claims. You probably heard this at the end of
Sure.
the how do we deal with this?
Yeah, I mean, I think, there's different types of content, and AI generated content's not going to be most effective for like, a YouTube apology video, right? Like no one wants to watch an AI generated influencer apologize on behalf of the real influencer. That's just not a good look, right? Um, so I think, that's the cool thing about what we're building is like we'll let you know. Um, like we're not gonna try to convince you to generate content that's not gonna be effective for you. We think like it really like a very nuanced set of rules and social norms about where AI content does and doesn't make sense. So like for example, if you want to demonstrate the use of a product, right? AI generated content is probably fine. If you want to do something funny to like hook people's attention, AI generated content is fine. Music video, AI generated content is fine. If you want to have like a product testimonial, you probably want like a real person. At the same time, a lot of product testimonials, like, they might not necessarily be like a person who's genuine already about using that product. So maybe in reality, AI generated is not strictly worse than status quo. But at the same time, it's like already that practice is like, not necessarily the best practice. So like AI content just like exacerbates an existing problem. So I think it's more about how can we find the opportunities where there's content where people don't really care it's AI generated. But like in fact, they might prefer it to be AI generated because what's AI generated might be more interesting, engaging, or creative than what a person with a given budget might be able to accomplish today.
Yeah. Yesterday, I was reading around the inflection point. There is a new paper which came out around this inflection point for creators, where there's
Hmm.
one point in time where using generative AI may actually replace our jobs. And I would love to get your views on this. I don't
Hmm.
think so. I believe if we are creative, we are looking at it as an enabler for problem solving, decision making, accelerating things. We still have value to provide on this earth. But do you think
Yeah.
it's an inflection point? What is your view on this replacement, this job replacement around current discussion around AI right now?
Yeah, I mean, at one point people were doing cave paintings with like, ground up leaves and berries, and that took a lot of time, and probably there weren't too many people that could be artists, and then paint people came up with like, paints and pigments and like paintbrushes, and it got a lot more efficient.
Yeah.
And what we saw was not, all the cave painters got put out of work. It was like now there are a ton more artists and the Renaissance happens. Digital media came out, like people draw on tablets a lot now. That really reduced the, friction. People are now able to generate like, 3D printed sculptures. I think when new tools come out, what it does is it increases your opportunity for artistic expression and lowers the iteration time and the cost of prototyping. So in a way, I really see this wave of like AI enabled agentic co-creators as just allowing for better content. Like, and I think, it's going to get more competitive because if everyone's producing better content, the bar for you capturing people's attention is higher. But it just means everyone's watching and engaging and creating more interesting things, which I think is a net positive. So I don't think that it's going to I don't think it's going to create like hurt creative jobs. Instead, I think it's going to dramatically open up the creative possibilities and the opportunity for making things your users actually want to see.
Yeah, I remember a statement from Zach Cass, who actually highlighted that we are moving into a world where I guess creative authenticity, I think it's systemic authenticity is going to be important. And really, what you
Hmm.
were saying, knowing where we are going to add this AI component to actually create, that interest, but still be
Yeah.
authentic within. Um, how do we actually make sure that we combine the right things to still keep our identity? So, what he talked about is not about job displacement. What we need to be mindful of is identity displacement in the sense that our jobs are going to change, what we are going to do is going to change. And so, being part of this movement, because everything we are going to do is going to be enabled by the new technology enabled by generative AI and large language models. What's your view?
Um, yeah. So sorry, could you maybe restate the last part of that question?
Yes, moving from job displacement to identity displacement, being maybe different people, because the jobs are going to change, the roles of those jobs are going to change. What we are doing yesterday is not going to be probably what we are going to do tomorrow.
So what's identity displacement versus job displacement?
So identity is more around us as individual. We have been used to, I think, align ourselves from to our jobs. You're an entrepreneur, probably you probably will do that less. But usually imagine you work for a big companies. When
Mm.
you introduce yourself with your job. However, today we self is are going our authenticity is going to become much more important.
Yeah, I think like, that's true. So someone who like maybe was predominantly doing a job that like maybe an LLM like automates a lot of the work, day-to-day work, they might become more like, for example, a like prompt engineer. Like they might transition from a role that's like I'm, writing like translation guidelines, so I'm prompt engineering our translation system. I think for jobs like marketing, it's less so going to be a transition because a lot of those roles are already managerial. It's just instead of managing external agencies, maybe you're managing a agentic creation system.
Yeah.
I think artists similar. It's like it's not you're a paintbrush artist or you're like a Adobe Illustrator artist. You're an artist. You might be a digital artist. I don't think that fundamentally the identity of people are going to be changed as much in that sense. I think it's really more so the tools. But I do think there are fields where fundamentally a lot of the work is going to shift from doing the work yourself to either, QCing or improving, focus on improvement rather than focused on like, doing the same task that you've been doing over and over again.
Yeah, we
Um,
can then focus on more complexity. And as you said, the agents are enabling us to do more things. So as we
yeah.
push towards, fully generated environment, right? You mentioned agentic environment as well. How does AI-driven activities, right, start alleviating the biggest challenge in our world? Or help us build the future of tomorrow. What are your top trends as you see the world of AI being part of everything we do?
I actually think a lot of the challenge with AI is the infrastructure to support it. AI is generally, it requires a lot of, computing resources, a lot of energy. So I think in a way, ironically, the AI revolution has spawned something kind of like an industrial revolution to support it. So things like, green energy, responsible nuclear energy, are becoming like very top of mind. Like how do we build out the infrastructure to support these data centers? How do we build out the data centers? I think the other thing is like, the lowering of bar to creating new businesses. Um, it used to take a really long time to create a company. Like, coming up with a prototype for an idea, you'd have to hire a software engineering team. Now, because of all these code generation models, a single person can create an app in a weekend. Taking that into something that's scalable and defensible still obviously requires a lot of work. So I think we're going to see a lot more like small micro businesses pop up. I also do think that the other big trend is we're going to continue to see the proliferation of, generative models throughout existing distribution platforms. So, like, Meta is adding their video generation model into Instagram. Google's put Gemini in pretty much everything. Google search now has like an AI summary at the top. That's rolling out more to more and more people. You can chat conversationally with your email. I think we're just going to continue to see AI. I don't think it's really AI. It's like this, watershed moment where like suddenly everyone's using a new interface for everything. I think it's more like we're going to see the continued proliferation of, into our existing tools, new ways of interacting with our data and interacting with our interfaces.
Yeah, it's interesting because you just mentioned Gemini. Just before I call, I got a message from Google saying that now I have access to Notebook LM plus
Yeah,
within my Gemini. And, those audio files, for example, produced from, massive files. Often I look at annual reports, can be so helpful. You're on the treadmill,
yeah.
you want to actually listen to the latest and the greatest from one of the companies you are working with. Now you can have that audio file literally in seconds. So the world
Mhm.
we're in is fascinating. And I would like people to really understand we are talking about marketing and a lot of transformation is going to come into those fields. But it's not just that, right? Education, gaming, insurance, finance are going to
Yeah.
benefit from that. What is your view? What excites you the most when you look at Hydra and the work you can do for others across industries?
Yeah, I mean, I think marketing and education are two of our big verticals. I think education particularly interests me. Like I grew up in an area where like Florida's public school system has always been under strain.
Yeah.
And I was always like very excited as a student, and I was fortunate to be able to get into like a magnet program in my area in the public school system where the teachers are really engaged. But a lot of people from my area, they just basically like stay in my area. They don't leave. Um, so I think I've always cared a lot about like educate accessible education opportunities. And I think the cool thing about AI is that you have this system where suddenly the thought of having like a personalized tutor for everyone, like that was just something like when you were a kid, like, if your parents had enough money, they could pay for a tutor for like, improving your scores or whatnot. But if you didn't, you're kind of out of luck. And
Yeah.
now, like, suddenly LLMs are cheap enough that everyone in the world can have their own personalized tutor that can grow to understand them, that can grow know, what you don't know, what you struggle with, can like how you best communicate. I think that's actually like, education technology is not always seen as like the highest growth thing, at least in the venture landscape. But I actually feel like there's like a huge, exciting transformational opportunity here. Like I can imagine a future where people don't go to school and listen to one teacher, but like go to school and like the teacher maybe is there to help and guide them, but like they're interacting with their own personalized tutor that's like monitoring what they're doing to like make sure each kid is moving at the pace that represents what they can do.
Yeah.
Um, and I think, with the advancements now in these like mathematical reasoning models, I think math was probably the area that was like hardest for people like to imagine being disrupted by AI. But now it's like, any kid that's struggling on a math problem, instead of having to come to like office hours, like just give them a limited number of uses of the reasoning model to talk them through the problem. Although now I guess, kids can just go and they can use O1 on their own personal accounts and solve all their homework. But like, for I think it's not so much about like can you solve this assignment, but like how can we use AI to teach you so that you know you understand the principles so that you know how to use these tools and you understand the principal core concepts. I just think there's so much opportunity here for like changing education. Um and yeah, I think that's one of the things that's like outside of a business perspective, what's personally exciting to me.
Yeah, I mean, you have two things you highlighted. First, personalization for everybody. And I think LLM make things very affordable, as you said, for
Hmm.
people who could not afford it. Now, what you also said is education is going to change. I don't think we are going to learn, or I guess university courses are going to be taught in the same way as they were in the past. And often I hear from educators, professors from business school that actually they need to revisit their business model because education is going to change drastically. But for you, Michael, what are the three most important takeaways people need to remember from our discussion?
Yeah, I think the three most important things I would say is that we're rapidly seeing an advancement in core model capabilities where things like image, video, and text synthesis for a large amount of content are going to be solved in like the next year. Two is that, the important thing now is thinking about what are these holistic workflows. Um, so that's like I think the next big opportunity is like given the capabilities of base models, how do we like build the right workflows to empower our end users to be able to use them effectively? And three, I think I'd say like, this is a really exciting time for people to like dig in and begin thinking about how they could be, more efficient by leveraging some of this technology. And there are lots of companies like Hedra, like others in the space that would love to get their feedback on like what they need to build like the next generation of workflows for them. So I'd
Yeah.
say, yeah, like understand core model capabilities, think about like emerging next generation workflows, leveraging those models, and like, educate yourself about the technology, work together with companies to kind of, figure out how we can make your experience more exciting and efficient.
Yeah, I love using Hydra for, as you said, the intro to actually uh, get this attention grabbing activity going.
Yeah.
I use v.io to do the rest, right? And so the thing which is very important, it's not going to be using one single tool. It will be multiple tools potentially used together. And what we are looking for from an orchestration viewpoint is getting to see everything coming together so that we know what our workflow looks like. So, Michael, thank you very much for joining me on Scouting for Growth. Where can people find you and what should they do if they want to reach out to you?
I'm pretty active on Twitter at mjlbach. But also like, I live in the Hedra Discord. I'm pretty available on LinkedIn, Michael Lingelbach. Those are like the main areas which you can contact me.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much for joining me. Really excited about all the great work you are doing, teaching us as to do content in different ways. I look forward to hearing and seeing how Hydra is moving forward. But thank you for joining me on Scouting for Growth.
Thanks so much for having me.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Scouting for Growth. Please subscribe, share with friends, and leave a 5-star rating. Your rating is so valuable. I review all of them, and my team help me adapt content to meet your needs. Also, connect with me on my preferred channels. I am a B2B growth expert, so you will find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Threads, and X as well as Blue Sky. All information available below. Until next, keep scouting for growth.